A quiet night over Earth, the stars shimmering like a cosmic tapestry above. Astronomers peer through their telescopes, scanning the endless void as they've done for centuries, searching for distant planets, celestial anomalies, and signs of life. And then, something changes. A signal, faint but undeniable, disrupts the background noise of space. At first, it's dismissed as a glitch, then a cosmic anomaly. But within hours, every major observatory across the world detects it. Rhythmic, structured, intentional. The undeniable signature of intelligence. Excitement grips the scientific community until the signal abruptly stops. Silence follows. Every attempt to respond is met with nothingness. And then, satellites begin to vanish, one by one. Earth's eyes in the sky go dark, severing our connection to the stars. Panic spreads among those who understand what this means. But before anyone can fully grasp the implications, the invasion begins. They arrive without warning, emerging from the abyss like predators descending upon unsuspecting prey. Enormous warships, each the size of entire cities, materialize in Earth's orbit. Their hulls are sleek metallic beasts, glistening under the sun's rays. No diplomatic greetings, no grand announcements, only destruction. The first strike is a calculated execution. Coordinated, merciless, and devastatingly precise. Orbital bombardments reduce key military installations to rubble in mere seconds. Airbases, missile silos, and naval fleets, gone before a single alarm can be raised. A global blackout follows as entire power grids are fried by electromagnetic pulses. Satellites fall like shooting stars, burning up in the atmosphere. Civilization is thrown into chaos. Cities descend into darkness, their streets filled with the echoes of confusion, fear, and helplessness. And then, as if to complete the message, the invaders broadcast their first and only demand: submit or perish. The message is transmitted in every language known to humankind. It is not a request. It is an ultimatum. And behind that cold, mechanical voice is an unshakable certainty. Earth is outmatched. But the invaders have made a grave mistake. They believe that victory is inevitable. That because their technology dwarfs ours, resistance is meaningless. They think that war is a simple equation. Whoever has the superior firepower wins. They know nothing about humanity. Every great journey starts with a few brave explorers. Right now, HFY Chronicles-849 is just beginning, and your support means everything. If you enjoy unraveling the mysteries of the universe, hit subscribe. It's free, and it helps us grow this community together. The first hours are a nightmare. Communications are shattered, and governments struggle to coordinate. A response. Fear spreads faster than the fires consuming the world's greatest cities. From New York to Beijing, London to São Paulo, the night sky burns with the glow of devastation. People run, hide, pray. But there is no escape. The invaders hover in the skies, watching, waiting for humanity to surrender. But they have miscalculated. Earth is not like the countless planets they have conquered before. Its people are not passive, not willing to kneel. We are a species born from struggle, evolved in the crucible of survival, hardened by wars that have reshaped history. We are the descendants of warriors who stood against overwhelming odds and refused to fall. The Spartans at Thermopylae, the resistance fighters of World War II, the soldiers who fought against impossible enemies and won. That spirit is woven into our very existence. Surrender is not an option. At first, Earth's defenses seem primitive in comparison. Nuclear warheads are launched in desperation, streaking toward the alien fleet like furious fireballs. But the enemy is prepared. Their energy shields shimmer as the warheads detonate harmlessly against them, barely scratching their hulls. The retaliation is swift. An energy beam carves through a military command center, vaporizing it in an instant. Fighter jets scramble into the sky, but they are swatted down like insects. The world watches in horror as their best weapons fail, as their greatest warriors fall before an enemy that seems untouchable. But amidst the devastation, something else stirs. Human ingenuity. Our species does not fight wars like others. We do not rely solely on strength, nor do we adhere to the rules of conventional warfare. Where the enemy sees order, we create chaos. Where they expect submission, we deliver defiance. We are unpredictable, adaptable, relentless. The first counterattack is not waged by governments, but by those who refuse to accept extinction. Engineers, hackers, scientists, soldiers, and civilians, each finding a way to strike back. Earth's brightest minds begin analyzing alien technology, searching for cracks in its impenetrable armor. Military tacticians abandon traditional strategies and turn to guerrilla warfare. Resistance cells form across the world, striking the invaders where they least expect it. Every city, every ruin, every stretch of wilderness becomes a battlefield. The war is no longer about military dominance. It is about survival, and humanity is proving far more difficult to exterminate than the invaders anticipated. This is no longer their war. It is ours. The invaders had seen war before. They had conquered worlds, shattered civilizations, and wiped entire species from existence without a second thought. To them, war was efficiency, overwhelming force, swift annihilation, and complete subjugation. They expected Earth to fall the same way, quickly, easily, without resistance. But they were wrong. The first true battle was not fought in the skies or deep space. It was fought in the streets, in the ruins of fallen cities, in the tunnels and forests where humanity refused to be hunted down. The invaders, for all their superior technology, had never fought an enemy like us. Their war doctrine was built on the assumption that civilizations break once their central command is destroyed, that once the ruling governments are crushed, resistance collapses. But Earth was different. Across the globe, military leaders, scientists, and survivors adapted with terrifying speed. The war that had begun as a planetary slaughter was transforming into something far more dangerous, an insurgency. The aliens controlled the skies, but the ground belonged to humanity. Sakura. First counterstrikes with Earth's major cities in flames. The invaders expected the next step to be simple: occupation. Their ground forces descended from their floating warships, towering machines of war with sleek exoskeletons, reinforced armor, and weapons that could reduce concrete to dust in a single shot. Alongside them marched foot soldiers, bioengineered, warriors, genetically perfected for combat. They moved with mechanical precision, their eyes glowing with artificial intelligence, their neural links keeping them in perfect synchronization. They had fought enemies before, primitive, disorganized, desperate. But when they landed in the ruins of Earth's cities, they were met with something far worse. Humanity did not fight in formations. Humanity did not play by the rules of conventional warfare. Humanity turned the very terrain against them. The first successful counterattack happened in what remained of Chicago. The alien forces, marching through the crumbling streets, detected no threats, until the sky itself erupted. Improvised explosive devices, hidden in the skeletal remains of skyscrapers, detonated with unimaginable force. The invaders were sent crashing to the ground, their armor shredded by metal debris and flames. Then the gunfire began. Snipers hidden in the rubble picked off their officers. Civilians turned fighters, men and women who, only days before, had been engineers, police officers, doctors, rained down gunfire and explosives in a brutal ambush. The aliens tried to regroup, but there was no order to fight against. The humans fought in shadows, in tunnels, in crumbling alleyways where their technological advantage meant nothing. In just a few hours, an entire alien battalion was wiped out. It was the first time in their empire's history that an occupation force had been repelled, and it was just the beginning. The human resistance rises. Across the world, similar uprisings began to take shape. Survivors in Europe, North and South America, Asia, Africa, and Australia were no longer just running, they were hunting. Humanity's greatest weapon wasn't its technology, it was its ability to adapt, to evolve under pressure, to turn every loss into a lesson. In the dense jungles of the Amazon, entire platoons of alien soldiers vanished without a trace, taken down by traps, snipers, and silent hunters who used the terrain to their advantage. In the ruins of Tokyo, cyber warfare specialists cracked into the invaders' neural networks, corrupting their data streams and forcing their own robotic soldiers to turn against them. In the deserts of Africa, human forces used speed and deception, striking alien supply lines with hit-and-run attacks before vanishing into the sands. In the underground tunnels of Europe, survivors built resistant strongholds, striking at night and slipping away like ghosts before the enemy could respond. For the first time, the invaders faced an enemy they couldn't predict, couldn't control. They had expected a battle. What they had walked into was a war of attrition. Turning alien technology against them. But it wasn't just guerrilla tactics that turned the tide. Scientists and engineers across the globe had been working tirelessly, salvaging whatever alien technology they could. Wreckage from downed ships, captured weapons, even fallen enemy soldiers. Every piece of technology was dissected, analyzed, and repurposed. Energy-based weapons were reverse-engineered, allowing human forces to fight on equal footing. Alien exosuits were hacked, their targeting systems overridden to misfire on their own troops. Shield technology was studied, revealing weaknesses in their frequency modulations, allowing for human-designed pulse weapons to break through previously impenetrable defenses. And then came humanity's greatest breakthrough. A rogue scientist, working from an underground bunker in Eastern Europe, discovered something buried deep within the aliens' software. A security vulnerability in their hive mind network. The aliens functioned in perfect unity, their entire war machine running on a synchronized system of data sharing. If a weakness could be exploited, a virus, an override command, it could turn their greatest strength into their greatest weakness. The plan was set in motion. A small strike team, armed with modified alien technology, infiltrated a recently established alien command outpost. Their mission: implant the virus into the network and shut down the enemy's battlefield coordination. If successful, it would be the single greatest turning point in the war. But time was running out. The aliens were learning. Their response was becoming more aggressive, their tactics more brutal. If humanity didn't act fast, the window of opportunity would close, forever. The fate of Earth depended on one final, desperate assault. The invasion had started as a massacre. Now, it was a war. But war is never static. It evolves, shifts, changes with every battle fought. The aliens had been forced to acknowledge something they had never encountered before. A species that refused to be broken. Humanity, battered and bloodied, was learning, adapting, faster than they had ever anticipated. And now, Earth was about to hit back harder than ever before. The turning point. Humanity's most daring operation. The rogue scientist's discovery had given humanity something they never expected. A way to fight the invaders on their own terms. A flaw in their hive mind network. A tiny crack in what had seemed like an unbreakable system. But exploiting it wouldn't be easy. The plan required a highly specialized strike team. Not just soldiers, but hackers, engineers, demolitions experts, and intelligence operatives. Every member of this mission had one thing in common. They had nothing left to lose. Their families were gone, their homes destroyed. This mission wasn't just about Earth. It was personal. Their target, a high-security alien command center. A towering structure of shifting metal, pulsing with energy, sitting at the heart of the enemy's central control grid. It was heavily guarded, surrounded by automated defenses and patrolling war machines that never slept. Getting in undetected would be impossible, so they wouldn't sneak in. They would force their way in. The assault on the alien command center. The night before the attack, the strike team gathered in an abandoned military bunker beneath the ruins of Berlin. The weight of the mission hung heavy in the air. The hacker, known only as Zero, went over the plan one last time. He would infiltrate the enemy's network remotely, guiding the team through the structure's shifting corridors. The demolitions expert Carter checked the charges. If they failed, he would bring the entire tower down with them inside. The squad leader, Captain Renner, a hardened veteran who had survived the first wave of attacks, made it clear. This was a one-way trip. As the sun set, the operation began. The first phase was a distraction. Resistance forces launched a large-scale assault on the outskirts of the city, drawing enemy forces away from the command center. Alien warships screeched through the sky, plasma cannons lighting up the horizon. The invaders thought it was a full-scale attack. They had no idea it was a diversion. The real strike team, moving under the cover of the chaos, slipped through the enemy's defenses in a stolen alien transport. Their stolen technology gave them just enough time to breach the outer perimeter before the alarms went off. Then, the fight truly began. The aliens fought with ruthless precision. Defensive drones hovered through the halls, scanning for intruders. Biomechanical guards, faster and stronger than any human, engaged the strike team in brutal close-quarters combat. But what the aliens had in technology, the humans countered with sheer ingenuity. Carter used homemade EMPs, crude but effective, to disable enemy drones. Zero hijacked the security systems, using the enemy's own cameras to lead them through the shifting corridors. Renner's squad moved like ghosts, setting explosives. As they went, preparing for the worst-case scenario. They fought, bled, and lost good men along the way. But they made it. Deep into the heart of the command center, where the hive mind network pulsed like a living organism. Zero plugged in the virus for a single moment. The entire battlefield went silent, the virus unleashed. Turning their own weapons against them, across the globe, something terrifying happened to the alien forces. Their coordination broke. Their hive mind link, which had once made them a flawless war machine, was now their greatest weakness. Their warships froze in mid-air. Their automated systems locked out. Their soldiers turned sluggish, confused, hesitant. Without the hive mind connection, their perfect synchronization was gone. Weapons malfunctioned, their energy-based systems flickering in and out as their networks were compromised. And then, humanity struck. From the war-torn streets of New York to the burning fields of Europe, the Resistance launched a planet-wide counteroffensive. It wasn't just an attack, it was vengeance. In Asia, Resistance hackers took control of alien drones, turning them against their former masters. In South America, guerrilla fighters, once outmatched, tore through enemy lines, slaughtering alien patrols who no longer had the advantage of instant coordination. In Africa, scavenged alien tanks were turned against their own kind, their targeting systems overridden. It was a massacre. But this time, the victims weren't human. The final battle, Earth's last stand. The strike team inside the command center had done their job, but they weren't out of danger yet. The aliens had realized what was happening. A kill order was sent. The entire facility was set to self-destruct. Renner's team fought their way through collapsing hallways, their exfiltration plan falling apart as the entire structure shook around them. Zero stayed behind, making sure the virus was fully embedded, before the terminal was destroyed. His last message was a simple one. Make sure this counts. The team barely escaped the blast, sprinting through the burning wreckage as the command center exploded behind them. With its destruction, the virus was permanently fused into the alien network, a wound that couldn't be undone. And across the skies of Earth, the war began to shift. The alien fleet's retreat, humanity's first true victory. The invaders, once certain of their victory, now faced a terrifying realization. They were losing. Their forces were crumbling. Their weapons were failing. Their enemies, who they had once seen as nothing but primitives, had turned their own technology against them. For the first time in their long history of conquest, the aliens retreated. Earth was no longer a world to be conquered. It was a battlefield they couldn't control. Their once powerful warships, now vulnerable, began pulling back, abandoning territories they had fought to claim. Survivors cheered as the skies cleared, as the invincible armada fled before them. But this war wasn't over yet. Humanity had won the battle, but the true war had only just begun. The victory on Earth sent shockwaves through the galaxy. The aliens, once an unstoppable force, were now in full retreat. Their warships, once symbols of absolute dominance, burned in Earth's atmosphere, reduced to flaming wreckage. For the first time in history, an advanced spacefaring civilization had been forced to retreat by a so-called primitive species. But humanity knew better than to celebrate too soon. This was not the end. It was only the beginning, because, now, for the first time, humanity wasn't just defending itself. Now, we were coming for them. The aftermath of the battle, Earth's scorched remains. The skies were clearing, but the planet itself was unrecognizable. Cities lay in ruins, entire. Continents had been scarred by orbital bombardments, turning once thriving landscapes into lifeless wastelands. Billions were dead, and for those who had survived, life would never be the same again. Yet, amid the devastation, something remarkable was happening. The remnants of humanity were uniting. Before the invasion, Earth had been a world divided. Countries at war, governments in conflict, corporations driven by greed. But now, with the ashes of civilization still smoldering, there was only one goal: survival. The United Nations was gone. Governments had collapsed, but in their place, something stronger was rising. A unified military coalition formed from the scattered remains of Earth's armed forces, scientists, engineers, and revolutionaries. They called themselves the Terran Resistance, and their mission was clear: take the war to the enemy. The grand strategy, humanity's plan to strike back. The alien retreat had not been a complete withdrawal. Their forces had suffered a catastrophic loss, but they still held outposts, supply lines, and occupied territories across the solar system. Even though Earth had won a major victory, the war was far from over, and humanity had a choice to make. They could rebuild, lick their wounds, prepare for the inevitable return of the invaders, or they could do something no one had ever done before. They could chase them down. The decision was made. A new fleet would be built, not just to defend Earth, but to hunt the invaders wherever they fled. This would be humanity's first step into interstellar war. And to win, they needed to strike before the aliens had a chance to regroup. Their first target? The enemy's largest remaining outpost, Phobos, the alien-occupied moon of Mars. The battle for Phobos. Humanity's first offensive strike, Phobos had been turned into a fortress. The aliens had used the Martian moon as a forward base, constructing massive shielded installations, hangars for their warships, and automated defenses. It was meant to be an impenetrable stronghold. But the Terran Resistance had a plan. Humanity had spent decades sending probes and rovers to Mars. They knew the surface, the caves, the underground tunnels better than the aliens did. And if the aliens thought their advanced defenses would make them untouchable, they were about to learn just how wrong they were. The invasion begins under the cover of darkness. Earth's first true space fleet made its approach. These weren't traditional starships. Humanity hadn't had time to build an advanced navy. Instead, they had retrofitted captured alien vessels, turning them into weapons of war. Stolen alien corvettes, once tools of oppression, now carried human pilots. Modified cargo freighters had been refitted with railgun turrets and missile batteries. Repurposed asteroid mining ships had been turned into boarding craft, designed to drill through the alien defenses. This wasn't just a battle, it was payback. The attack came fast and brutal. A wave of hijacked alien fighters, now under human control, struck first, scrambling the enemy's automated defenses. Next came the boarding teams, smashing through the moon's surface, storming alien bunkers with vengeance in their eyes. The resistance fought like demons. Zero-gravity warfare specialists used magnetic boots and grappling gear to maneuver through the low-gravity battlefield, striking with brutal precision. Cyber warfare experts hacked into the alien network, shutting down power grids and cutting off reinforcements. Engineers sabotaged life support systems, forcing the aliens to retreat into the deepest parts of their own fortress. But the enemy was far from beaten. Desperate and enraged, the aliens unleashed their last line of defense, a terrifying biomechanical monstrosity, an artificial war beast built to wipe out entire battalions. It was a living weapon, a fusion of machine and flesh, armed with energy tendrils that shredded metal like paper and a hive-mind intelligence that adapted to every attack. It tore through the resistance forces, crushing soldiers in its mechanical claws, blasting squads apart with hypercharged plasma beams. The battle seemed lost, until humanity did something the aliens could never understand. They didn't run. They fought harder. They outmaneuvered it, exploited its weaknesses, hit it with everything they had. And when the final, devastating blow was delivered, a hijacked alien cannon turned on its own creation. The war beast let out a horrific, inhuman scream before collapsing in a heap of twisted metal and burning flesh. Phobos had fallen. The aftermath. The war becomes galactic with Phobos secured. Humanity had done the impossible. They had struck back at an enemy that had once seen them as mere insects. But more importantly, they had taken alien technology for themselves. Inside the captured outpost, scientists uncovered something that changed everything. Star maps detailing the enemy's homeworld, coordinates of their supply lines, hidden bases, and other occupied planets. Advanced technology that could accelerate human spaceflight by centuries. For the first time, humanity had the upper hand. They weren't just survivors anymore. Now, they were hunters. And as Earth's new fleet assembled, as stolen alien warships were refitted with human ingenuity and unmatched brutality, the message was clear. This war would not end until the invaders learned the true meaning of fear. Because now humanity wasn't just fighting for survival. Now, we were coming for their entire empire. The capture of Phobos was more than just a military victory. It was a message. Humanity, once dismissed as a primitive, backwater species, had not only defeated an advanced alien armada, but had now taken control of one of their strongest outposts. And more than that, they had done something no other species had ever dared to do. They were preparing to strike back. The war was no longer about survival. Now, it was about revenge. The new face of war, humanity's technological breakthroughs. The weeks following the Battle of Phobos, Earth's brightest minds worked around the clock to reverse engineer the stolen alien technology. What they discovered would change the course of the war forever. Artificial gravity generators, allowing human warships to maneuver in deep space like never before. Quantum communication systems, enabling instant, secure coordination between fleets. Self-repairing nanotechnology, drastically improving battlefield medical treatment. Plasma-based railguns, integrating alien energy weaponry with human ballistic firepower. But perhaps the greatest breakthrough was found deep within Phobos's data vaults. The Gateway. It was a network of hidden jump points, massive wormhole-like, structures that allowed near-instant travel between distant systems. The aliens had used them to expand their empire rapidly, but now, one of these gateways was in human hands, and the decision was made. The invasion of Outpost Sigma, humanity's first deep space attack. Outpost Sigma was the closest alien-controlled system within range of the Gateway. It was a small, fortified world, not a capital, not a homeworld, but a key supply hub, a perfect target. The enemy had no idea what was coming. The humans moved fast. Utilizing the Gateway, they launched an armada of repurposed alien warships, bristling with new, experimental human upgrades. The invasion was brutal. Unlike Phobos, where the battle had been fought in low gravity, Sigma's surface was a nightmare. Towering metallic structures, sprawling underground bunkers, and biomechanical defense constructs patrolled the skies. The enemy thought they were prepared, but they had never fought humans like this before. Orbital bombardments from hijacked alien dreadnoughts devastated entire city blocks. Strike teams equipped with experimental exosuits fought through impossible odds, storming alien fortifications. Cyber warfare divisions unleashed AI-driven viruses, shutting down enemy defense systems mid-battle. The resistance adapted, learned, evolved. Where alien armies relied on overwhelming firepower and calculated efficiency, humanity embraced chaos, unpredictability, and sheer relentless aggression. They didn't just defeat the enemy, they annihilated them. The psychological warfare. Humanity's new tactics, the aliens were an empire built on fear. They had crushed countless species before, reducing entire civilizations to ash and servitude. They had never lost a war, until now. And humanity knew exactly how to use that fear against them. After the fall of Outpost Sigma, broadcasts were sent across the enemy's entire communication network. But they weren't threats. They were warnings, messages, left on abandoned battlefields, encrypted signals hacked into enemy ships, even whispers in their own intercepted transmissions. Every message said the same thing. You started this war. We are going to end it. And then, silence. That was the most terrifying part. For the first time, the invaders realized they weren't fighting another primitive species waiting to be conquered. They were fighting something far worse. They were fighting humans, and humanity had nothing to lose. The retaliation. The enemy strikes back. The enemy could no longer ignore humanity as a minor inconvenience. They had been humiliated twice. They had underestimated this species, and now their entire empire was watching. They needed to make an example, so they sent a fleet. Not a scouting party, not an occupation force, a war fleet. Hundreds of capital ships, each the size of a city. Supercarriers brimming with thousands of fighters, siege engines that could crack planets open, weapons designed to erase entire civilizations in one decisive strike. Their destination? Earth. This was not an invasion. This was extermination. The aliens no longer wanted conquest. They wanted revenge. The battle for Earth, humanity's last stand? The Terran resistance knew what was coming. With Outpost Sigma secured, they had bought themselves weeks, maybe months, before the enemy fleet arrived. But that wasn't enough time to build an empire-spanning war machine. Humanity had one chance. One final stand. Every last resource was funneled into Earth's defenses. Every surviving ship, every engineer, every scientist worked around the clock. The military was no longer divided by nations. There was only one army now. One planet. Species. And when the enemy fleet finally entered the solar system, the humans were waiting. The ambush was brutal. Humanity had turned Earth's moon into a fortress, bristling with hidden artillery, railgun turrets, and cloaked defense platforms. The moment the alien armada arrived, a wall of firepower greeted them. But the enemy was ready. They pushed through. And as the first wave of alien warships entered Earth's orbit, the fate of humanity hung by a thread. This wasn't just a battle. This was survival itself. The final war had begun. The invasion had begun. For centuries, humanity had looked up at the stars with wonder, curiosity, hope. Now, those same stars burned with the light of incoming death. The alien war fleet, a force unlike anything humanity had ever seen, descended upon Earth. Their capital ships blotted out the sky, massive silhouettes against the blue expanse, their hulls gleaming with the energy of weapons powerful enough to shatter continents. And they did not come to negotiate. They came to erase humanity from existence. The first strike. The massacre in Satora. Orbit. The battle started in high orbit, where Earth's last remaining space fleet, outgunned, outnumbered, and facing impossible odds, stood between the enemy and home. The human fleet consisted of everything that could still fly. Old defense satellites, repurposed cargo haulers armed with scavenged railguns, newly built warships reverse-engineered from alien technology. And at the heart of it all, the pride of Earth's Navy, the UES Retribution. She was humanity's first fully hybrid warship, a behemoth of steel and firepower, enhanced with stolen alien tech. Her hull reinforced with self-repairing nanoalloys. Her weapons a terrifying fusion of human ballistics and plasma-based energy cannons. And she led the charge. The battle in orbit was merciless. Alien dreadnoughts launched spatial ripper beams, tearing through human ships like paper. Carriers deployed swarms of biomechanical fighters, grotesque machines that screamed through the void, their weapons melting through hulls in seconds. Yet humanity did not retreat. Instead, they fought with a desperation that terrified their enemy. Destroyers rammed into alien warships, detonating their reactors in suicidal last stands. Orbital weapons platforms activated fail-safe protocols, turning Earth's upper atmosphere into a storm of railgun fire. Human pilots, outgunned in every way, used unpredictable, chaotic tactics, weaving through enemy formations, forcing aliens into deadly collisions. The Retribution led the counterattack, its experimental plasma cannons firing in synchronized bursts. The first enemy capital ship was torn apart within minutes, its flaming wreckage plummeting toward Earth's surface like a fallen god. For a brief moment, it seemed like humanity had a chance. Then the flagship of the enemy fleet arrived. A vessel, so massive that its mere presence disrupted planetary gravity fields. Its hull was not made of metal, but living, shifting matter. A construct of unknown origin, pulsing with a dark, ancient energy. It unleashed devastation. A single weapon fired, a planet cracker beam. It pierced Earth's defenses, carving through the moon's surface like butter. The explosion was visible from the surface, a shockwave so powerful that it sent debris hurtling toward Earth. Luna, the fortress that had stood as humanity's first line of defense, was gone. The enemy fleet pushed forward. The battle in orbit was lost. Earth was now defenseless. The fall of the cities. Fire rains from the sky. The moment the human fleet was broken, the real nightmare began. Orbital bombardments commenced. Entire cities were vaporized in seconds. New York, Shanghai, Berlin, São Paulo, all reduced to glass and ruin. Earth's military forces scrambled to respond, deploying every last defense. Anti-orbital railgun batteries fired relentlessly, but the enemy's ships moved faster than human technology could track. Underground bunkers shielded civilians, but nowhere was truly safe. EMP weapons were detonated, scrambling enemy communications, but the invaders adapted too quickly. The aliens did not come for conquest. They came for extermination. Cities were wiped off the map. Infrastructure was reduced to rubble, and entire nations fell silent. The sky was filled with the ashes of civilization, and yet humanity refused to die. The resistance rises. Earth's last warriors, with the global military in ruins, the fight for survival fell to those still standing. Not armies, not nations, people. Scattered remnants of soldiers, scientists, engineers, and civilians formed resistance cells across the planet. Their goal was no longer to win the war. That was impossible. Their goal was to survive long enough to make the enemy pay. Urban warfare erupted in the ruins of former megacities. Hit-and-run guerrilla tactics bled the invaders dry. Hackers and cyber warriors turned the aliens' own technology against them, shutting down vital infrastructure. For every human settlement that was wiped out, a dozen more resistance cells sprang up. For every commander that fell, a new leader took their place. The enemy had superior weapons, superior numbers, and superior strategy. But humanity had something more terrifying. They had nothing left to lose, and when you push a species to the brink of extinction, that's when they become truly dangerous. The turning point. The enemy's greatest mistake. The aliens believed they were unstoppable. After all, they had reduced entire worlds to nothing. They had faced no equal in millennia. They had expected humanity to crumble. Instead, they watched in horror as humans kept fighting. And then, humanity found its opening. The Retribution, critically damaged but still operational, received a message from deep within the enemy's own fleet. A message from one of their own. A high-ranking alien commander, disgusted by the senseless slaughter, provided a single piece of intelligence that changed everything. The location of the enemy's homeworld. The resistance did not hesitate. Every remaining warship, every surviving soldier, every last resource was thrown into one final operation. A suicide mission, not to win the war, but to show the enemy the true meaning of warfare. A strike at the heart of the invaders. The war was no longer about survival. It was about vengeance, and as the last human fleet vanished into the darkness of space, heading straight for the enemy's capital, the invaders finally understood what they had awakened. They had wanted to destroy humanity. Instead, they had created something far worse. They had created monsters. The darkness of space stretched infinitely before them, an abyss filled with distant stars, each one a silent witness to the final, desperate stand of humanity. The last remnants of Earth's forces. Wounded warships, battle-scarred soldiers, and resistance fighters who had lost everything, had embarked on a mission that no species had ever dared to attempt. A direct strike against the enemy's homeworld, not to conquer, not to negotiate, but to send a message. A message written in fire, blood, and the unbreakable will of a species that refused to die. The journey to the enemy's homeworld. The fleet was a ghost of what it once was. The UES Retribution led the way, its hull scarred and cracked, its weapons running on borrowed time. Behind it followed every remaining warship, cruiser, and fighter that could still fly. Many were barely holding together, patched with whatever scrap metal and alien technology they could scavenge, but they moved with purpose. Their destination? The enemy's throne world, the heart of an empire that had ravaged entire civilizations for millennia. The information had been given to them by a traitor within the enemy's ranks, a commander who had watched in horror as his own kind massacred an entire planet without reason, without mercy. For the first time, the enemy feared their own actions. They had pushed humanity too far. They had created something unstoppable. The journey through deep space was brutal. Alien patrols hunted them relentlessly, forcing the fleet to take dangerous, uncharted routes through gravitational anomalies and collapsing nebulae. Supplies ran dangerously low. Rations were cut to one meal every 2 days. Sleep was a luxury few could afford. Weapon systems failed mid-flight. Mechanics worked around the clock, patching hulls with their bare hands, using scavenged parts from wrecked ships. But they kept going. The enemy believed that wiping out Earth had been the end of the war. They had no idea that it was only the beginning. The HFY infiltration, turning their own weapons against them. The final approach was a suicide run. The enemy's homeworld was a fortress, surrounded by Titan-class battle stations, protected by defensive planetary shields, and guarded by an armada of ships, so vast that it eclipsed entire star systems. A direct assault was impossible. So, humanity did what they did best. They adapted. Using the codes provided by the alien defector, the Retribution and its fleet approached the enemy capital under the guise of a returning war battalion. It was the greatest deception in human history. Enemy. Sensors registered them as friendly. Docking stations opened their gates. And then, hell was unleashed. From inside the alien spaceports, human marines stormed through the docking bays, slaughtering everything in their path. Ships that had been waiting for routine maintenance were suddenly hijacked, turned against their own kind. Saboteurs disabled planetary defenses, shutting down orbital shields. Cyber warfare teams infected enemy systems, throwing their entire network into chaos. Tactical nukes were planted in key infrastructure, detonating in perfect synchronization. Within minutes, the enemy's throne world went from an impenetrable stronghold to a battlefield. The Retribution had one final objective: to deliver the payload. The final blow. The birth of a superweapon, unknown to the enemy. Humanity had developed something terrifying. A weapon so advanced, so destructive, that it defied conventional warfare, a hybrid fusion bomb, powered by the very same alien technology that had been used against Earth. It was not just a bomb. It was a lesson that humanity was not prey, a lesson that extinction worked both ways. As the battle raged, on the surface and in orbit, the Retribution descended toward the enemy capital city, the beating heart of the Empire. Every ship in the alien fleet scrambled to stop it. Dreadnoughts fired planet-cracking beams, but the Retribution dodged and weaved like a demon, leaving fire and destruction in its wake. Fighters swarmed it like insects, only to be obliterated by railguns and plasma turrets, spraying the sky with burning debris. And then, the moment arrived. The Retribution, critically damaged, engines failing, made one final charge toward the alien capital. Inside, every remaining soldier, pilot, and engineer knew they would never see another sunrise. But they smiled, because they knew what they were about to do. They were about to change history. The Retribution's core overloaded, releasing the full energy of the fusion bomb directly into the city's central command. The explosion was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. A storm of white-hot plasma erupted, engulfing everything in a 1,000-mile radius. The sky turned to fire. The Moi capital city. The very heart of the enemy. Empire ceased to exist. The enemy's leaders, their ruling council, their warlords, all gone in an instant. The Empire was headless. The invaders who had once terrorized entire civilizations were now leaderless, confused, and shattered. And for the first time in their existence, they felt something they had never known before. Fear. The aftermath. The legacy of Earth's fury humanity had won, not by conquering, not by negotiating, but by proving a truth that could never be forgotten, that no species, no empire, no force in the universe could ever break them. The enemy fleets, now leaderless and crumbling, turned on each other. Civil war erupted within their ranks. Planets that had once been part of their empire rebelled, rising against their former masters, and humanity. Humanity had become legend, no longer a species to be eradicated, no longer a civilization to be conquered, but a force that terrified the galaxy itself, a force that had survived genocide, and had struck back harder than anyone ever imagined. Their name became a warning, a whispered fear in the void. The species that refused to die. The species that turned war into an art of vengeance. And as the remnants of humanity drifted into the unknown, rebuilding, recovering, preparing for what came next, one truth remained. They had lost their home, but they had won something greater. They had won the right to exist. And now, the galaxy would never forget the fury of Earth.